must thank everybody for the haze I've received them. May the accused please remain seated.
Yes, please, Honourable Court. My Lord, in my address to the Honourable Court,
Yes.
can I start?
Yes.
I'm not going to repeat my heads of argument, my Lord. Instead, I'm just going to go through the case as we proceed and
Yes,
highlight certain aspects.
When you say you're not going to go through your haze, you mean the principle?
Paragraph by paragraph, yes.
No, the principles.
Yes.
You're only going to apply the principles
To
the
the
law,
facts.
to the facts.
Yes, my Lord. As if that is suitable to the Honourable Court.
No, that's absolutely. I've read them.
Yes.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Soko?
Indeed, my lord, I don't have a problem with that.
Let me just seek your assistance here. At what time did you receive, or when did you receive the state haze?
My lord,
You see, the reason why I'm raising this,
yes,
I've read your haze, all of them. You and the state, you are in agreement that this case is based on circumstantial evidence.
yes, indeed.
But the state didn't only stop there. They said slash similar facts evidence. And I don't seem to pick up that in your argument.
Yes, my lord.
Sorry?
Yes, indeed.
No, you can take that.
Yes.
You know, particularly when one has to have regards to the development, similar facts development, particularly since the advent of Man-King versus the Attorney General of South Wales, Australia.
Yes. The court is
You know,
correct.
that is an old case. Law of Evidence 101. I don't seem to pick it up in your case. Am I correct?
Yes, correct, my lord. Yes.
And I just want to let you, think about those, because the state seem to suggest that the similar fact evidence is of such probative value and that it should be taken outside the normal prohibitions. And in any event, the prohibitions seem to have somehow been diluted by the developments in jurisprudence, particularly, in science. So I would like you to do that, because I may seek your assistance. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
As please, Honourable Court, my Lord.
Have I captured your essence?
Yes, that is exactly the state's relying on circumstantial evidence and as well as similar fact evidence.
And if I understand you correctly, the contention is that in this matter, the similar facts. For instance, when you say similar facts, you mean, by way of illustration, after the death of February, in short, the accused, as you pointed out, not correctly, the accused the first person to be on the scene.
Yes.
And you also seem to suggest that the nature of the insurance policy is such that it is only in respect of accidental death.
Unnatural.
Unnatural.
Yes.
And you say these are such of probative value. Do you understand that correctly?
Yes, my Lord, I do agree.
Please.
Yes, my Lord. So when we start at the beginning, when Mr. Witness Madala Homu passed away, 1 April 2012, his body was found, my Lord, and
31 April
2012.
2012.
Witness Madala Homu. Now, at that time, my Lord, there was insufficient evidence in the docket to pinpoint exactly who was responsible for the death of the deceased, Mr. Witness Madala Homu. So the docket was kept aside, my Lord. Investigations proceeded. But then we moved forward up until 2017, 7 March 2017. And I will take the court back through each and every individual case. But if we then jump up
You
until
know, there are six cases. That
Yes.
is Madala Homo,
Audrey
Audrey Somisa,
Ndlovu,
no, Somisa Ndlovu,
yes, Yangwani,
Yangwani Mlauzi,
Basa, Maurice Mabasa, Zanele Mota, Mayeni Mashaba, and Mr.
the
Brilliant Mashego.
Yes.
And only, my lord, on the 7th of March 2017, when the accused was arrested and the undercover police official, Warrant Officer Dlamini, recorded the conversations and admissions by the accused as to how she conducted herself in applying for policies and making sure that the death is unnatural and that she
Just a minute.
applied. She applied for policies to ensure that the double benefit would be payable in the event when the deceased passed away due to unnatural causes.
That is only in respect of Homo and Yangwani Morris.
No, my lord, it's also in respect of Miss Audrey Somisa
Oh, yes.
Ndlovu.
But you see, the one of Audrey Somisa Ndlovu
Yes, my lord.
can be, you know, has to be treated differently.
Yes.
Would you agree with
It
me?
has to.
And the
Because,
reason why I'm saying this
yes,
is because the contention is that that was not it's not the accused who applied for those benefits. No, for that policy.
yes, I agree
And
with
then
you.
there's a evidence by way of an affidavit of the late Professor Janssen.
Yes. Exhibit
But
B.
you know, now coming back to similar facts,
Yes.
would I be correct to say, on assumption that Ms. Ndlovu Audrey Somisa applied for that, the nature of the policy that she applied for, is the same that is in respect of Yangwani Mulau, no, Mabasa,
Mabasa.
Homo,
Exactly, my lord.
yes, and then is that a part
The
of
court is correct. When the court considers the affidavit of Professor Janssen, that affidavit doesn't stand alone, because if the court have regarding to the actual transcripts, which was handed in, the Holler transcript, One Life transcript, as well as the clientele transcript in relation to Audrey Somisa Ndlovu's policies that she obtained, those policies, if the court have regard to it, the particulars in that policies, those policies, the communication in regards thereto from the insurance company was forwarded to the accused address, the P.O. Box address, Olifantsfontein. The court will see, I did note it, I think it's P.O. Box 933.
yes.
And that is the accused P.O. Box, my lord. So it's not only Professor Janssen's evidence that stands alone. Because if
Just a minute. Yes.
the court have regard to even the evidence of Mr. Haystack, he even picked up.
Just let, and I will get your colleague to assist. Mr. Haystack's evidence is that there was a call which was received,
Yes,
and somebody wanted to find out whether it was Audrey Somisa Ndlovu,
yes,
and the call was dropped.
yes,
And subsequent to that, there was a call from landline. Am I correct?
yes, my lord.
Who made that call?
According to Mr. Haystack, the voice sounded like the accused.
But at that time when the call was made, was Miss Ndlovu Nomia Ndlovu alive or dead?
No, she was already dead. But it was from the initial phone call was from the handset which was provided the number as Audrey Nomia Ndlovu's number. But at that time she was already passed away.
So when that call was made, she was already dead?
Yes.
Just a minute. You know, we are trying to unscramble the egg here.
No, I agree with the court.
When Thomas Khosa
Thomas Khosa, yes, my lord.
and Mrs. Mwebe and Masrame Masangani, they, particularly Miss Mwebe, she said the accused approached her on
Yes.
the 26th, that she phoned the accused, but it goes to the voicemail.
Yes, she was unable to find all
Yes.
officers there.
And but the accused was found, you know, the deceased was found in his cottage
Yes.
and at the Badimus residence, but the phone was never discovered.
Yes, the phone was never discovered. If the court have regard to Exhibit Y, the statement of the accused made after the incident, Exhibit Y, the accused submitted that the phones were missing in a statement. But the evidence of Mr. Khosa was nothing was missing. He couldn't find anything missing. But what we do know is there was no phone that was discovered. But the same phone was utilized to call and inquire about the policies.
There's the one which was
Yes.
dropped when there was a inquiry about.
Yes, that is the number where Mr. Heistek, he summarized all the calls that was received on behalf of Ms. Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, and he then said,
But this, just a minute. Yes, thank you. Proceed.
so if regard is given to that, my lord, then more credibility and more reliance can be made based on the findings by Professor Janssen. And in Professor Janssen's report, he says yes, the voice is similar, but not only the voice. When the accused announces a certain word, she rolls the R. And that was picked up in numerous calls. And that can only be contributed to the voice of the accused individual. Now, my lord, yes, Mr. Janssen's report, he couldn't have been cross-examined due to his untimely death. But the facts which is contained in that report is supported by the other facts, my lord, which the state presented, like Mr. Heistek, who testified. About that. But then we also look at the policies. Ms. Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, she resided in a bedroom, one bedroom at the back of the landlord's house. She wasn't having a rich life, but yet there was numerous policies where she was the holder, the policy holder.
How many policies do you think there are?
With Audrey Nomia. If
Yes.
the court have regard to Annexure 3 to my heads of argument,
Sorry, three? What is your Annexure 3 to?
Annexure 3 is this table of policies.
Let me, I didn't get that.
Can I hand one up to
Yes,
the Honourable
please.
Court?
And it identifies the,
It identifies the exhibit, the policy,
yes,
date of inception,
okay.
and when the claim was made, the death claim. So it's just a summary to assist the Honourable Court.
Just a minute, let me just see. Whilst you are on that,
Yes, my lord.
can I take you back to your case?
Yes, my lord.
Page 5, item 21.
Yes.
You see? Can you read that into the record?
Godfrey Mushwana,
Yes.
friend of witness. Oh, that is in Godfrey Mushwana. Yes.
Not a friend. It's a cousin.
Oh, that is an error, my
Yes.
lord. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to be sure. And
Cousin.
Siyabong 48, he's with the Standard Bank.
Yes, that was the policies at Standard Bank.
That's the one who, yes. Is he the one who said, he gave an interpretation of his spouse being 3 months, that he can
Yeah.
qualify? Or is it Motepe?
No, it was him, my lord.
Okay, that's fine.
Motepe was of AFPOP. If the court remember, William Motepe, Mr. William Motepe, testified on behalf of AFPOP.
Yes, now I just want to hear that.
Apologies for that, cousin.
No,
I
no.
might have mistyped that.
No, don't worry. I've picked it up because, it has been quite,
So, if the court have regard to this Annexure 3,
yes,
which set out the exhibits, we have the old mutual policy. If the court have regard to my table,
yes,
it's in the middle of the page. The court will see in the first column, count 2 is highlighted.
count 2, yes.
Count
1,
2, so it's
2,
line 1, 2,
3,
3, 4,
4.
5, 6, line 6. And it goes up until page 3, my lord, the second line.
Sorry, it's from count 2.
Count 2 is page 1, line 6,
Yes.
up until page 3,
Page-
line 2. Line 3,
Oh,
No,
page 3,
line-
okay. And then that will
Line
be
6.
S. Ndlovu. Yes.
So if the court have regard to this table, yes, there's policies on behalf of Ms. Audrey Nomia Ndlovu where she was the policy holder, and the court can have regard, but there was also policies where Audrey was not the policy holder, where the accused applied for the policy in herself. If the court have regard to the first one, Exhibit SS, the old mutual policy,
Yes.
that policy has lapsed. The court will see that. Then the second one, on the 16th of
So
April,
the SS, yes, it is lapsed. The second one, yes.
16 April 2013,
Yes.
the accused applied for a comprehensive and extended funeral plan. Now, the witness from Old Mutual came to testify, and she explained to the Honourable Court what does comprehensive mean. It means double payout. Exactly as the accused informed Mr. Dlamini during the ride to Bushbuck Ridge, that is what she's relying on, the double payout as soon as possible after the death occurred.
Well, I don't think the time within which they settle this thing is a new phenomenon. Have you seen a certain advertisement we pay within 24 hours?
Oh,
That's clientele, and that is hollered, and that if you
Yes.
look at, and this is a very massive multi-billion industry.
I do agree. But then if we have regard, my lord, to line 7, that policy, once again, that policy was obtained on 16 April 2013.
Which one is that?
Line 7, page 1, my lord.
that is Old Mutual.
Yes.
Yes.
Also an old mutual policy, comprehensive and extended funeral plan.
Which one is, let me just see whether it's that. Where is that? Comprehensive, yes.
Yes.
And comprehensive, it means twice.
Yes, double payout in the event of an accidental or unnatural death. Now, but then, my lord, there comes another similar fact.
Whilst you are on that, and I will also ask your colleague here. The person, for want of better name, in short here, had a child,
Yes, Brilliant Mashego.
Brilliant Mashego.
And he's not named as a beneficiary.
On the basis of probabilities, how would you assist me to deal with it on the basis of probability?
My lord, highly improbable. We've heard the evidence of both his grandmothers. We've seen conditions how they resided. It was a rural area. The paternal grandmother, Ms. Sharash, who testified in court, Sharash Mashego, she explained to the Honourable Court, she struggled.
Just there. My understanding of her testimony is that there is a rift between the two families. Would I be correct to make that inference?
I will agree with the
He
Honourable
even
Court.
said she was unhappy because the Ndlovu family came there and stood away from there as if they are not the immediate family members to the deceased.
During the
Did I-
funeral
Yes,
proceedings.
did I hear that correctly?
That is correctly, as well as a portion of evidence where she said that she was the only individual contributing towards the upbringing of Mr. Brilliant Mashego. She received no assistance from the Ndlovu family or the accused at all. So that, my lord, should be taken into account, because even at that stage, when the mother of Mr. Brilliant Mashego passed away, one would surely expect, if a mother would wanted a life policy, why do you want a life policy? To enrich your sister? Or to ensure that there's something to look after your children? To ensure that there's a future for their children? Is that not why one would obtain a life policy? But for your sister, who's employed as a police officer, does that make sense?
Once you're on that, a juxtaposition that with her evidence, in the bail application.
Yes.
In the bail application, if understood, and this pick it up from the heads of your colleague, and I will also seek here, because at the end of the day,
Yes, my lord.
one has to say on the
Probabilities.
on the scale of total evidence placed, has the state proven his case?
Yes.
In that application, obey, would I be correct to say that the accused indicated herself as a very caring person
Yes.
who paid for everything?
Yes. And she also indicated that the family is very poor, that they are suffering, they're living in the rural area. But then also, my lord, if we look at the date, if I can take the court to Annexure 3, on the 16th of April 2013, the accused applied for the old mutual policy 69005910874531,
Sorry,
line 7,
yeah.
page 1, Annexure 3. That is the date
Sorry,
she
that
applied
is on the
for.
first page.
Yes, my lord.
And then
OM3. But now, the similar fact comes the very next line. The so-called plan, comprehensive family funeral plan, taken out by the deceased on the very same day, 16 April 2013. What is the chance, my lord?
just a minute.
I have emailed that annexure, my lord. I don't know why the court. But I will email it again to the
No,
court.
I've got it. You've given me this one.
Oh. So,
Just a minute. Yes.
so if the court have regard to that, and also to the other factor that the state is saying is a similar fact throughout all these offences, my lord, 16 April 2013, the deceased was found killed 26 June 2013.
Sorry?
26 June. Forgery Nomia Ndlovu, count 2, found deceased 26 June 2013. So the period of ensuring the said individual, my lord, is extremely short before payout is affected. Just the very next line, my lord, the court will see that the policy in respect of the Hollard policy exhibit WW, the court will see that the Hollard policy was obtained 18 July 2012. So that policy's no premiums was received. If the court have regard to the fact 2012, it was too lengthy period to cover this individual. So it's the state's respectful submission, what we can see from the pattern and the actions of the accused. The lives weren't insured for such a lengthy period on the policies that she in fact claimed and which was paid to her, my lord. Now,
Just let me seek your assistance. Evidence before this court is that there was some threats from the accused directed at the investigating officer,
yes,
and also to Mr. Haystack that why you don't pay, I would report you to the
ombudsman.
How do you link those up with your suggestions of?
Well, my lord, the actions of the accused by threatening the investigating officer for instructing everybody to withhold payout, what is the only inference to be made from that? Why did the accused have to threaten the investigating officer? All he did was...
Well, what you would do? What would be your response? That well, she was entitled to do so because they undertook contractually. If one has to accept that there was a contract, that they would honor that in within 24 hours.
But as a police officer, my lord, surely you will realize payouts cannot just happen if there is an investigation pending. If the police notifies the insurance companies of a pending investigation of the payouts, surely as a police officer she has to understand and accept an unnatural death. Something has to be investigated.
Minute. There is only one instance where she said that as a police officer I wouldn't have allowed this to happen. You still recall that?
I would not have allowed
When she said she could not allow that to happen. Nothing.
Oh, the robbery of the traditional healer when she apparently took Mr. Ndlovu
Yes.
to Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes. Is it where she said as a police officer? That is
Yes.
only one. Would that be correct to say that is the only incident that is said as a police officer?
I would not.
I could not have allowed that incident to happen when
Yes.
it is alleged that Jabulani
Wanted to rob
Gulen
the...
wanted to rob the police if she, the traditional officer.
Yeah. But then the question arises, as a police officer, that very same day you are arrested, you do not deem it fit to submit a warning statement and say, listen, I'm innocent. I was here to assist this man to see a traditional healer, and he wanted to rob the traditional healer. So I distanced myself from his intentions. Is that not what one would have expected?
Once we are on that, when the witness testified, the younger sister, what is the name of the younger sister?
Kebesile Kunene, Ms.
No, the
Kebesile
younger sister to the accused.
Joyce Ndlovu.
When
Ms.
Joyce Ndlovu testified, what was the request to her by the accused? And how do you link that?
Yes. I believe the accused wanted to ensure that Ms. Joyce Ndlovu was in fact at home the next day, so that the death could have occurred. Because she only wanted to inquire about whether or not her friends or neighbors or would assist her and everything. And then she also asked her, will you please take me to a traditional healer?
That is what I'm interested in.
So,
she said, she received the call in the morning.
Yes.
I think it's on the morning of the 7th.
Yes.
That accused number one, accused telephoned her to say, look, a man, I've got such a, bad luck spell.
Yes.
I don't have any children, I
Husband.
don't have a marriage and all these things. And I want you to may you take me to the
Traditional healer.
traditional healers.
My lord, the reason why I'm saying is that was only a purpose or an intention from the accused to ensure that the sister is in fact at home, because Ms. Joyce Ndlovu said that was a strange question. She'd never visited traditional healers. She didn't believe in them. So if the accused wanted a traditional healer, why did she not approach her mother or anybody else?
No, but has that was that evidence disputed?
No. Yes, it was actually. It was by Mr. Soko. It was disputed that it was just a blatant denial. She never found you.
But but in evidence in Riverwalk evidence, did the accused?
Yes, my lord.
Did she accused deny that?
Yeah, she denied the calls that was ever made to her sister. It was just a bare denial. According to her, she went there on that morning to assist Tsebesile and Mr. Njabulo Kunene to go and seek the assistance of a traditional healer. But now, even that version, my lord,
Just a minute. We have, as I've said, these facts are interrelated.
yes,
They jump from one case to another.
another.
When Brilliant Mashiro decided to alight at the engine garage, what time did the accused say it was?
I believe 11 o'clock.
No,
Close to 12.
no. At the, he said at 9:30
The
in
evening.
the evening. That and under cross-examination, what time did he say?
12 o'clock.
11 to
Yes.
12. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. No, it was in fact stated like that.
And this was at the engine garage
In Dwarsloop.
in Dwarsloop, and this was in the evening.
Yes.
And that's when she was waiting for this
Boyfriend.
Ngwenya.
Yes. But now, once again, my lord, even though there's no duty on an accused person to call a person to establish an alibi, certainly if it was your boyfriend or a romantic interest, and for the effect, even if he did not see Mr. Brilliant Mashego in your company, for the fact that you were with him traveling back to Gauteng, surely he could assist it in her evidence, as her evidence itself was not satisfactory, my lord. There was unanswered questions. Initially, she did not admit that she was with Brilliant Mashego. It was hidden. only in the bail application. And when she was questioned about the bail application and the difference in her version from the bail application, Exhibit ZZZ, up until her version when she testified, my lord, then she blamed counsel.
Yes.
So the fact that the accused version was developing all over the case. Initially she pleaded guilty to conspiring. Initially she pleaded guilty to conspiring with Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize. When questioned by the Honourable Court, it changed. No. It's conspiring with Mr. Njabulo Kunene. And she admits, we discussed killing my sister. But then all of a sudden, I realized it's wrong. And I decided not to go through with it.
Just let's go back to Lakiwe Mkhize. Who was it ever denied that they were together in Dwarslu or in Tulamahashi?
Yes.
But what was Lucky Mkhize's response?
If I can just quickly assist the Honourable Court. He said, we did, my lord, and his evidence, yes, there might be criticism against his evidence. However, it's the state's respectful submission. Where his evidence was faulty or
Where do you think he...
that trip to Pomalong. But the accused herself doesn't deny the trip to Pomalong.
You know, when after Njabulo has
Yes.
introduced him to accused,
Yes.
and that is when they were at Miss Kunene's house.
Yes.
Okay, but what I'm interested in,
If I
And-
can quickly
yes,
assist
and
the
this is
Honourable
where
Court.
the witness even said, I come from KZN, how do you?
Yeah. I don't know that area. How would I have known?
Did the accused not deny that he was there
There.
with him?
Accused never approached you and asked you to kill her sister. During December, she was at Sebesile's place. So that was not in dispute that they were at Sebesile's place and that they met there. But all the other meetings and phone calls between themselves, my lord, was disputed. If I can just have a look at...
Yes.
It was put to the witness. He testified that he was taken to Tulemahashe.
Yes.
It was put to the witness that that the mother stays in Bushbuck Ridge, not Tulemahashe. But Tulemahashe is in Bushbuck Ridge.
But you know, was it denied that they went there or the mother?
Yes.
The two statements are not, the two questions are not the same. Was it denied that they went together?
Yes. It was.
Accused
Accused denied that she hiked with you to Tulemahashe, and the witness said she's lying. They went.
Okay, yes.
It was towards the end of her evidence, the witness's evidence, during cross-examination, my lord. But the accused version which was put to this witness was bare denial. But then that evidence of the accused cannot stand, because Exhibit WWW, the phone records,
The phone record.
that is on black and white.
Yes.
The witnesses were asked towards their numbers, what are your number? It was placed on record. It was never disputed that that was the number. Then it was, in terms of Section 220, admissions that the phone records were handed in to the Honourable Court.
While we were on the admissions, in terms of Section 220, as the case developed and progressed, there were certain factors that became common cause,
Yes.
i.e. the payments of all the monies into the accounts of the accused.
Yes.
Does that, how would you factor that in relation to the whole phenomenon or hypothesis of similar fact?
My lord, the fact remains, initially it wasn't admitted that she received any money. The state had to prove it. And the witnesses came from all the insurance companies. They came, they testified, the bank accounts, payments, all the exhibits are placed before the Honourable Court. There is no escape way. And all of a sudden, it's admitted that the money was received.
So, would I be correct that, in addition to the admissions made in terms of Section 220,
Yes.
as the case progressed, certain factors became common cause, including the payments?
Yes, the payments that was received, the court will see at the onset, at the beginning of each and every count. In my heads of argument, I've set out a summary of what is issues in dispute
Yeah, no, I've seen that. I
and
just
what
want
is
to
not issues in dispute, and throughout the trial, did
again,
not become.
In the interest of fairness,
Yes, my lord.
let me take you to the state submission in the case where it is said Ndlovu was a hit man. I don't think there's any evidence to say he was a hit man.
My lord, it should actually have been in quoted text.
Exactly.
Because on behalf of the accused, she saw him as a hitman. But for him, it was only
No.
about meat and drinks.
No, but Ndlovu said when he was approached,
Yes.
he said, "I'm not a hitman, but I will assist." That's when Lakiwa Mkise comes in.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, my lord.
So
I
it
agree.
is not correct to say he was a hitman, alleged possibly.
Yes,
He
my lord.
denied that he was a hitman. He even questioned the accused, "Why do you pick on me?" And if I recall properly, he said, "Miss Bind, you know what?
No, my lord.
You've got courage."
Oh,
He
about
said,
the gun.
"How do you come to that?" He said, "I realized that when I arrested you in
Yes.
2011.
My lord, even though Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize and Mr. Njabule Kunene says, we are not hitmen.
No.
The accused
Yes.
saw them as hitmen. And I agree with the Honourable Court, I should have probably said alleged. But these are my heads of argument, my lord.
No,
And
I just wanted to do that
Yes.
so that anybody must understand that
Yes,
it was
he's not a
alleged.
hitman.
It is alleged, and he, allegedly, organized.
Yes.
Mkhize and Mkhize went with them to Pumulong Fest,
Pumulong.
and Lakiwa Mkhize also allegedly went with the accused to Lamahash,
Yes.
Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes. So,
The reason why I'm saying this is because when the conspiracy or the plan developed, it was Njabulu who said,
I'm not a
no, he escalated that to Ndombela, the friend, and the friend
Yes.
then said to that.
Yes.
So I just wanted to in case anybody can have this discussion that Njabulu was a hit man.
No.
He was alleged, he denied, and he is the one who reported,
The
and that
accused.
report triggered
Yes.
the sting operation. Am I correct?
I agree with the Honourable
Good,
Court.
thank you.
So, but the accused, for her perspective and for her purpose in this case, he was the hitman. She
And-
paid him money to execute certain individuals. And she even went on afterwards to follow up and inquire as to why the hit wasn't carried out, why the people weren't executed, why the people are not crying, why there's no tears.
That's when they have come back from Pumulo.
Yes. And Mr. Njabulo Kunene says, we enjoyed the money for meat and drinks. But it then continues. The accused continue, and then she meets them again, my lord, and have a discussion. And she tells Mr. Njabulo Kunene she's killed her sister.
No, she said when Ndlovu Kunene asked about the sister, said that one has been taken care of.
There's another portion, my lord, in the evidence that the state found. If I can just quickly assist the Honourable Court, it was put. He asked. If I can just, yeah. She told me she has killed her. In her evidence, just after he provided his numbers, in his evidence, my lord.
Where on which day?
That was on the date when the video clip was played in court, 28 July 2021.
Just a minute.
2021. It's just before the cross-examination commenced.
That is 28th
Yes,
of August,
July,
July,
28 July.
before the
Yes.
cross-examination.
Yes, the witnesses asked for cell phone numbers, and once again he provides a cell phone number, as well as Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize, and it wasn't disputed. The numbers that belonged to them was never disputed. Now those numbers painted a dark picture, which corroborated their evidence. Not only Exhibit 1, the video footage which was recorded in the vehicle, but then also the contents of Exhibit WWW, the cell phone records of Warrant Officer Venter, who then made for the court a chart. And then that exact chart, my lord, also utilized the numbers of the accused, which places her in the presence of Brilliant Mashego.
But what do you make of her contention that when she called that number from RVAP, she thought it was was
Tshepisile.
yes. What do you say about that?
My lord, if the court have regard to the cross-examination even of Mr. Kunene and Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize, that was never put to her. Even to Mr. Kunene, it was put to Mr. Kunene that the accused never found Tshepisile on that phone. So here we have a total different version of the accused being developed, that it was in actual fact Tshepisile that she wanted to get hold of and not the alleged hitman. So even though the accused attempted to deviate from her version and make her version fit in as reasonable possibly, if she was able to do that, my lord, she wasn't. She was unable, and that is why the court will find throughout her evidence she amended her version. She became evasive, she became argumentative. And then we also find the similar facts, my lord, in the fact that the deceased individuals, Mr. Maurice Yengwani Mabasa, who was found there, he wasn't robbed. And the extent of his wounds, if the court have regard to his wounds, 80 plus stab wounds.
79.
79. 79 stab wounds, my lord. What does the court make of that? On a day-to-day basis, we see dockets, we see photos.
Well, while you're on that, I did invite the accused,
From the onset.
particularly during the testimony of Charlotte Maluleke, to look at the photo of Brilliant Mashego in those T-shirts.
Where it was
Yes.
found.
No, because she had to give the counsel instruction whether that was how he
Yes.
was dressed. What was the reaction?
She refused. She actually, if I remember correctly, she just threw the photos to the side, to the interpreter's side. And yet, in her evidence in cross-examination, so the version was never put to Mrs. Maluleke that the deceased did not wear that dark clothing the day when she visited Ms. Maluleke in the company of the youngster. But in her own evidence, she came and said, no, he was never wearing that type of clothing when we were together that day.
Okay, let's proceed to...
Okay. Now, if the court then, after then 2017, my lord, then the investigation started opening up. And we then found 2 policies in respect of Mr. Witness Madala Homu. No further evidence was found to indicate that another person might have been involved. There's no evidence to such an effect, my lord. But then we also have the frightening evidence of the mother of Mr. Witness Madala Homu, who testified during January 2012. The accused phoned her and inquired from her, what is her date of birth? And she then sent them 200 rand cash to buy a cake to celebrate her date of birth. And she found that extremely strange because the accused never provided for her or assisted with her. Then we see the accused receive a total amount of 131,339 rand and 70 cents. The evidence comes to testify. Ms. Eva Homu testifies and says, yes, the accused contributed 200 rand when the meat was insufficient. The accused version again changes. Initially, she said to the Witness Madala Homu's mother, the accused offered to pay 15,000. 15,000. Then to Ms. Homu, when the court asked, offered, and it was said, yes, offered. And the court specifically asked, offered. And then Ms. Homu came to testify and the version was amended. She handed her 15,000 rand. And the reaction of both these 2 witnesses,
Now the handing came during her evidence in her own defense.
it was put to Ms. Homu as well, my lord.
And then, no, I mean that, but
Yeah.
he said, I drove to Tsanin
Yes.
with Morris and we handed. Mrs. Her aunt,
Yeah.
her aunt said,
Lucy Mushwana.
yeah, she said they never gave me even the book in which you document the contribution. There was nothing from her. Did I understand
Yes,
that correctly?
Ms. Mushwana was very up to
And that's
whatever.
the time when the suggestion was made that she broke down.
Yes.
And he said, since the burial, this is the first time that I see here in court.
And from the burial, the accused never even attempted to make any contact.
Yes, no, that is...
Now, if that is taken into account and Exhibit ZZZ, the bail application of the accused, where she creates this background of this caring individual looking after the family and extended family members and explaining why she took out so many policies covering all of them, her version was, I wanted to take care of them financially, because due to my upbringing, there was a financial burden on our family. Yet here we have a family. The mom elaborated how she struggled as a farm worker. She elaborated that she struggled financially. And then the accused received 131,000 rand, 339 rand. On its own, my lord, that doesn't seem too suspicious. But then we look at the column just next to it. Why do you register your cousin as your spouse? Because the accused, as was testified by Old Mutual, as well as Mr. Heystek, who testified, if you have a policy for a spouse, you do not pay a premium. So, from the onset, my lord, in 2012, it is respectfully submitted that the version of the accused that the salesperson from the different insurance companies just made the error cannot hold any water, because if the court have regard to Annexure 3, she lied in relation to witness Madala Homu. She lied about their relationship. She lied in respect of Brilliant Mashego being her son. That is not her son.
Well, what did you say if I invite you to take it from perspective of culture? Say, in certain cultures, he is indeed, she can qualify as a son or she can qualify as a mother.
My lord, perhaps in culture, but if you complete like certificates of documents that you submit in claiming for insurance benefits, documents that you sign and undertake that all the information is true and correct. We all have cultural traditions. However, we are bound by the norms and rules of our society.
You know, of
Yes.
the protocols of the business
Yes.
involved. Okay, please
So,
proceed.
for that, my lord, in the respect on its own, with Ms. Madala's Homu's case, seems, yeah, but then we complete the puzzle and we find similar facts in the romantic relationship of Mr. Yangwani Maurice Mabasa. Now that matter, my lord, is quite interesting, because then we received the evidence of Mr. Masana Mashaba, who came to testify. The accused wanted to obtain a life policy in the name of her spouse, Mr. Maurice Yangwani Mabasa. He then informed her, no, I cannot do that. And then he was informed, no, but my husband's here, come, and then we will assist, we can do the life policy here though. Much to his surprise, my lord, Exhibit 2, which contains the photo of the deceased, Mr. Maurice Yangwani Mabasa, was not the individual who signed the life policy. On the day, Exhibit FF, when the accused were present and when the policy was entered into, and the court will find that particulars on page 4 of Annexure 3 to my heads of argument.
But just there, the facts are still very clear
Yes.
in my head. With your untrained eye,
Yes, my lord.
when you look at the signature attributed to the late Maurice Mabasa, this is Maurice Mabasa,
Yes.
and you compare that with the signature obtained from the employer with your naked eye.
Yes.
What is your comment?
It's blatant fraud. There wasn't even an attempt, just like Lieutenant Colonel Caroline Mulawa testified, my lord. She testified. There wasn't even an attempt to make it look similar. There wasn't even an attempt. It was straightforward. Not that individual.
And that is the same individual who is said to be Maurice Mabasa.
Mabasa.
Yes.
And once again, my lord, Exhibit FF was obtained 20 April 2016. Mr. Mabasa was killed 14 October 2000.
Sorry, FF, when was the insurance taken of Mr. Mabasa?
1 August 2015. There's
1 August.
2015.
Yes.
My lord, that next column, there's an error. So that should be 1 August 2015. And then his body was found 14 October.
Police was taken on 1/8/2015. And the
Body was discovered
14th
October 2015.
And this is after there was an inquiry about the status of the policy then.
Yes, my lord.
Okay, that's fine.
Now that one, we're not only relying on Mr. Mashaba as well as Colonel Mulawa's evidence, But then we also look at the evidence of Mr. Heistek, who testified. No, I'm incorrect. If I can just, Mr. Dix Makachwa, who testified that a month or 2 weeks prior to the death of the deceased, Mr. Yangwani Maurice Mabasa, the accused phoned and inquired whether or not the premiums are up to date. Now, the reason why the accused phoned, my lord, if the court have regard to the, it was deducted from his bank account and his salary, my lord. Why did the accused inquire? Because she did not have access to that bank account anymore. She did not have access to find out whether or not the policy was in fact up to date, whether or not she was in fact going to receive a payout. So, if the court have regard to this puzzle of evidence, which on its own might seem insignificant, but then we also look at the policies of Ms. Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, similar.
And that is where you say, from the totality of all the evidence,
What's the only inference that this court can
this inference that she was
make responsible?
yes,
But then we
like
also,
what do you call them? Tricoté. You know what is the tricoté?
yes, it's a game.
No. You know, this is a group of French women knitting.
Yes.
When during the revolution, when the men who were seen to be treacherous were being executed, so she was, if I understand you, she was there,
Yeah.
or she was in the near vicinity. That's
In the
why
near
he
vicinity.
knew exactly where to go to.
But then
Would
if the court-
that be correct?
Yes.
That is your submission.
Yes, because it wasn't only in respect of Mr. Yangwani Maurice Mabasa that she allegedly noticed he went missing. It was also in respect of Mr. Mayeni Mashaba. According to Mr. Godfrey Mushwana, he testified, the accused phoned me and said she cannot get hold of the deceased. At that stage,
Which no,
no,
that's a homo madal.
witness. Oh, sorry. my
Witness,
lord.
yes.
But the accused was the first individual to realize there's something wrong. But she wasn't only the first individual to realize this individual is missing. She was the first there with Mr. Witness Madala Homu. She was the first individual who realized Maurice Yangwani Mabasa. She was the first to realize Audrey Nomia Ndlovu. There was no, she couldn't get hold of her. Everybody mysteriously disappeared. And the accused was the first individual who reported it missing.
But this is now, with the Madala home, witness Madala, I'm not the first one. I received a call from Mushwana, Godfrey. But Godfrey says now, I received a call from her, and Eva Mushwana says, I didn't even know how she got hold of this because she's staying in Tembisa and Madala Home was staying in
Halffontein.
Galfontein. Yes.
My lord, but if the court have regards to all the factors here, the fact that the accused, and it's my submission, my lord, that the accused reported the missing individual as soon as possible to be discovered in order for her to claim the money as soon as possible. Because if the court have regards to my last column of all the policies, my lord, shortly after the death is discovered, within 2 to 4 days, the death claims are being submitted by the accused.
And how do you tally it up with the conversation with the Rasta?
Because in the conversation with Rasta, it was said, I will pay you from that money.
No, as regards...
It fits perfectly.
No, as regards the accidental death, he says, if...
Get double.
No, if, it's accidental death, then they will pay within shortly
Yes.
because they will not be there. Did I hear that
Yes,
correctly?
and that is correctly, my lord.
Are you able to come to your conclusion?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a state respectful submission, my lord, that due to all the similar facts that I've highlighted in my heads of argument,
Yes.
even just from reading Annexure 3, my lord.
What is Annexure 1 and 2?
Annexure 1 and 2 is State versus Mugale, my lord. Annexure and State versus Njezi.
Well, 1 and 2 State versus Mahale, I've got up to, I think, page, paragraph 50.
I will just resend it.
But that would be, you don't have a copy with you there?
No, I don't have it. I have it on my computer.
Okay.
Yes.
In
that matter-
I just want to, because, all the cases, the Mahale deals with the
Similar facts.
yeah, the interpretation of the, the methodology of attribution of similar facts.
Yes.
And as well as in the case of Murphy J.
yes.
Yes, now, because there you only want to highlight the methodology,
Yes.
that we have moved from the Herschel, Lord Herschel strict interpretation, and we have now entered this because the jury is no longer... Okay.
I agree. But my lord, what I would like the Honourable Court to take into account when considering the guilt of the accused, we've had here a list of witnesses, 54 witnesses, who testified on behalf of the state. 52 witnesses.
Yes.
And the accused version in respect of all those witnesses were bare denial. Bare denial, although her version seemed to sort of fit in there, but it was bare denial of their version. Even Sergeant Mugwari.
Well, I would like to debate with you the question of reliability in the sense of credibility.
Yes.
What do you say about the state witnesses?
The state witnesses were reliable, my lord. They were credible. They corroborated one another. And
Was there any shortcoming in the state version?
no, my lord. The only shortcoming that I will concede to is Mr. Lakiwe Mkhize, in the fact that he says he did not go with them to Pomalong on 17 December 2016.
But
2017.
was
Remember
it not the evidence of Njabulo
yes,
and
Sebesile,
Sebesile?
and the accused herself
Yes.
says, we went there.
So,
So the fact that he does not recall going to Pomalong, my lord, does not affect the state's case to find his evidence not credible. Because even if a witness may not recall or lie about a certain aspect in his evidence, it doesn't mean the entire evidence of that witness should be discredited.
it can only be rejected if it's material.
Yes. And it's respectfully submitted the fact that the accused admit we were to Pomalong. It's only for the court to decide. Was it according to Mr. Vincent Njabulo's version or according to the accuser's version? Now, the fact that Gladys Nomasonto did not testify in Ndlovu, my lord, it's a state's respectful submission that it's not detrimental to the state's case. Because even Ms. Joyce Ndlovu, she only established the fact afterwards. But the agreement, the conspiracy...
So you said that the agreement was between the alleged hitman
Hitman,
and
the
as they
accused.
testified to.
Yes, and the accused. And for that, my lord, on the part of the accused, the part that she played in that conspiracy, her role was completed except for the last payment after the deed was done. So for that,
Once you advance that hypothesis, what do you make of the version of the accused's mother? The accused mother says, it firstly is a lady of advanced age.
She is.
And she says during December in 2017, nobody, it doesn't say, nobody unknown. He said, nobody visited me. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, that was her version, my lord.
And then I don't think, she was just deliberately, misplacing.
She remains the mother of the accused, my lord, and I believe...
And I don't think she was, her evidence is neutral.
No, I don't think so, my lord.
You don't think it's neutral?
No, I don't think so.
Why do you say so?
My lord, her evidence to that day of that period
Yes.
was clearly to protect the child. Her evidence wasn't needed. The state has enough, sufficient evidence placed before the Honourable Court to make a guilty finding in respect of the counts, count 14 of Maria Mushwana Nyavana, the mother of the accused. However, my lord, I believe she wanted to protect her daughter. I believe mothers want to believe in the goodness of their own children.
I hear you.
I cannot take it further. Except for that.
In conclusion?
In conclusion, my lord, the state will then therefore request a guilty finding on all the counts as set out in the indictment.
Conclusion as you have it in paragraph 94 of your case.
Yes. 94, 95, up until there, my lord.
Yes.
The only inference that this Honourable Court can draw from the facts which was admitted, the facts which was not disputed, the facts which was placed by the Honourable Court, and the circumstances, my lord, drawn from the common cause facts, is that the only inference is that the accused is the individual who perpetrated these offences, and that she should accordingly be found guilty, my lord. Unless there's anything further the Honourable Court would like me to address.
Annexure 2, you say is what?
Annexure 2 is Mughali, status Mughali.
Oh yes, and then
Annexure 1 is state
Nzunza.
my lord, that's another matter.
That's the judgment of Murphy J.
Yes.
Okay, that's
yes.
fine. Good.
That is it. I will email it again.
Now I've got them.
Oh.
I just want to, certain pages are not there, but if one looks at the analysis of the approach,
Yes.
attribution approach
Yes.
that the court has to take, as explained in even in Zephyr and
Yes.
latest developments, I think. But for sake of completeness, just I think will have it as well. Just check with you.
I will email it again,
Okay.
as please the Honourable Court.
Thank you. Mr. Soko, here, if you were not sitting in court, you will think that this is a story out of the book written by Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie, Madam Agatha Christie. And as I've said, if you want to pepper it with, then you can say also the Madame Defarge of Tricoteau's French, who were knitting the wool when the revolutionaries were being executed during the French Revolution. Yes. I've read your case. Let's start at the beginning. No, the rule is very clear. The state must prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. But that statement should not be misunderstood. Beyond reasonable doubt does not mean beyond the shadow of doubt. Miller versus Minister of Pension, 1947, the House of Lords in England, so pronounced. And that survived when they used to say you've got to look at the law as it was on the 31st of May 1961. You know why May 1961?
No, my lord.
If you read your law of evidence, it says when they refer to other cases, they say you've got, particularly in the law of the law of evidence, they say you've got to look at the law as it was prior to the 31st of May 1961. That is when we were still using the the British legal principles before we became the Republic. May 1961, 31st, South Africa became Republic. So that's why they will always tell you, you've got to look at the law as it was in 1961. Please proceed.
Yes, the court pleases.
So we have said it must not be, it doesn't mean, the beyond the shadow of doubt.
Yes, indeed, my lord. Yes.
And the court has to look at the merits and demerits. The court has also to look at the probabilities from the proven facts.
Indeed.
There's no obligation on the accused. The state is vested with this responsibility beyond reasonable doubt. But if they made a prima facie case, is the Honorable Mr. Justice Wilhelm Musene against State versus Tebus. And I think also in the case of State versus Zuma. If there's a prima facie case and you decide not to respond, there are consequences. We have laid down the principles. Am I correct? Are you with me?
Yes, my lord.
Good. Take it up from there.
My lord, well, we have the evidence of the state witnesses before court, and the evidence of the accused is also before this court. My lord, when we look at the evidence, my lord, of the state, my lord, with regard, I'll start with the count of Madala Homu, my lord.
Yes.
My lord, the state in that count, my lord, it relies on the evidence of the witnesses from the insurance policies, my lord, that the accused insured the deceased in order to benefit after the deceased passed on, my lord. However, my lord, the accused in his evidence is that he had took numerous policies on behalf of his family members and extended families, my lord. And all those insurance policies, my lord, were taken with good faith and out of love to cover.
Yes, proceed.
Is to cover the families when they passed
in the event of death.
Yes, my lord.
But then let me engage you there.
Yes.
You said she did this out of the kindness of her heart.
Yes.
But what was her response when she was asked why you didn't pay the 100,000 rands that you received in respect of Madala Homo?
My lord, with regard to that, my lord, the evidence of the accused that he gave Ms. Saras Mushwana 15,000 rand.
No, but that is, you've got to make some submission. The state says I've got to dispute that.
Yes.
Mrs. Mushwana, there she was in the witness stand.
Yes.
She said, "You never gave me the money."
Yes.
Mrs. Mshwana, there she was, she even broke down. She said the last time she saw the accused is at the funeral. And when it was put to her, it was not said she gave you.
Yes.
She said that she offered.
Yes.
Offer, it means acceptance. And
Yes.
it is not so that, if you contribute, you don't offer, you pay. Did you say she paid?
No, my lord. She said no, she didn't receive
Is that consistent?
any contribution from the accused.
Is that consistent with this generosity that seemed to be emanating from the accused version, particularly at the bail application?
My lord, at the bail application, the accused in that bail application, she testified that, my lord, there was an error when they typed that affidavit, my lord. However,
but what I'm engaging you on,
Yes.
you're saying this, we're done in good faith. And I'm testing you that. But you must understand, good faith is not it's not a defense.
Yes.
You've got to look at what the state is saying.
Yes.
So if you look at Madala's position individually, you may say, well, there is nothing, suspicious about this. But the consistency and the pattern is when they introduce the question of similar facts. And similar facts, as I've already indicated, until very recently, our law, which emanates, our law of evidence, which is basically based on the British legal system, and in the case of that Mencken versus Attorney General versus the Attorney General, Mencken versus Attorney General of New South Wales. The only the prohibition that one has to guard against is not to what you've got to use it in order to prove that she is that kind of person. But if the consistency is so huge, then the probative value goes up. That's what the state is, has indicated. They say, look at what he did at Madala.
Yes.
Look what he did at Morris. Look what he did at Somisa. And look at how these deaths were discovered. He said, if you take that into account, the only conclusion that you can arrive at from the proven facts is that the accused is the person who was in conjunction with unknown people participated in the killing of this. And this don't even stop there. The point that you don't, attack in your papers, they don't only stop there. They say, look at how they have been identified. She's the first one to be there. Immediately after the death, she lodges, and that argument goes further to Somisi. Says, look, this was a simple human being who didn't have enough. She was staying in one room, but the pattern is exactly the same. They even raised the question of, is it probable that Somisi, who had a child, the child is Brilliant Mashiu, the victim who is now the state submit, I've got to find from the conspectus of the all evidence that the accused had a hand in her death. And you remember the Brilliant Mashiu was found on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. And accused testified that she was there. She was the last person to see Brilliant Mashiu. at Dwarsloop. And she left it. She doesn't even tell us how she left Dwarsloop to go and catch with Mr. What is this? The boyfriend, this, casual boyfriend.
Bennett Gumani.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is how they put it. Now that is what you've got to address me on.
My lord, with regard to all these incidents,
Yes.
I'll go also to Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, my lord. Before I go to Audrey Nomia Ndlovu, my lord, there's evidence from the accused that at the time he was phoned by Mr. Godfrey Mshwana at some times regarding the whereabouts of the deceased, that Mr. Mshwana was phoned by the landlord because the deceased has not paid his rent.
Just there.
Yes.
Just stop there.
Yes.
And let's use common sense. That was on the first. Is there any reason why the landlord would say on the second he phoned somebody to say why he hasn't paid rent? And Godfrey Mshwana, he has gone to great lengths to say, look, my cousin is a police officer. I left everything in her hands.
Indeed.
And then the accused says now, he is the one who went into the police station, for instance, as far as the death of Mr. Maurice Mabasa is concerned. But he denies. He says, I was there, but I didn't go there. And if you contrast that with the evidence of Detective Sergeant Ledwaba and Mukwari. Mukwari says at 6:10, the accused came there with a child who could have been about 5 to 6 months.
Indeed, my lord.
And he wanted to report the missing person. And I asked her, do you have a picture? She said, no, but I don't stay far. She went out. And immediately she came. When she came back with he was following or in the vicinity of Ledwaba and her colleague. What he does then, he puts her hands on her head and start crying that they killed my husband. That's where the state says the pattern is the same, propensity. Now I'm asking you, please address me on that.
My lord, with regard to the Maurice Mabasa's incident, my lord, the accused is not in dispute that the accused was staying with Mr. Mabasa. They were staying together, my lord. As they were staying together, my lord, when he left to work and never come back, and the accused phoned his employer to find out whether he reported for duty, and he was told that he never reported for duty. That's when the accused, my lord, went to Olifantsfontein to report a missing person, my lord.
Well, Mr. Soko, I hear you that. But can I give a point that you need to address me on? One basic rule of evaluation of evidence is what? Don't cherry pick. Take the case in totality.
Indeed, my lord.
That's why the state has indicated that when you look at it alone, it may seem to be innocent. But when you start to increase the way things were done, that's when they introduced the phenomenon of similar effects. But he behaves, this is behavior all throughout this.
Yes, my lord.
Now I want you to address that.
My lord.
In other words, what I'm trying to do is look at the whole case as a unit.
Yes. Indeed, my lord, I've looked. Also, my lord, with regard to the accused version or evidence, my lord, also, if we take also together with the evidence of the state witnesses, my lord, yes, my lord, the accused is in Olifantsfontein to report a missing person, and now suddenly Sergeant Lidwaba arrives, and at that stage the accused started crying, screaming, and saying
That is in respect of whose death?
Maurice Mabasa.
But he says the evidence is that I received a call
Yes,
from Sergeant Mugweri.
yes,
Sergeant Mugweri says, no, I don't know this person.
yes,
But in her evidence, as he testified to, he said not only that, Maurice Mabasa was well known in the area. Possibly he might have been in the Stockfell with some of the police there, and that's why he says Maurice, Sergeant Mugwari phoned her and said, "I've got this news." He said, when she was confronted, he said, "Well, Maurice was well known in that area."
yes, yes.
So how do you do that? How do you make me to cross that? But the danger that we have to avoid
Yes.
is to try to cherry pick.
Yes, indeed.
We have to test this, treat the evidence from the first from 2012 when Constable Ndlovu, as a young lady from Bushbuck Ridge, arrived and ensured, as it were, Madala home until on the 7th of July, then as a sergeant in the police force, when she was arrested at the police station at the taxi rank in Bushbuck Ridge en route back to Johannesburg. Unknown to her, there was a sting operation. So this 7 years, then she is about 43, 44. At the time it's about 33. At the time when she did some of these things, she was more matured. Now, just tell me, how do you cross that? The state says don't cherry pick. Treat it as a unit. And in fact, that evaluation is, you always tell me that you take all the conspectus of the case. State versus Maiden.
Indeed, my lord. My lord, we're not disregarding the evidence of the state witnesses, my lord. We are taking all the evidence, my lord, that has been presented before this court, my lord. My lord, with regard to all this incident, my lord, all the deceased.
Well, let me engage you here.
Yes.
Was the deceased married to Madala Homo?
My lord, they were not married.
Madala Homo is her direct cousin on the first line of consanguinity. In
Indeed,
terms of, yes. The mother to Madala Homo, who was in the witness box here, when she looks at the accused, is Kumwana wa Usiahar.
Indeed, my lord.
And if we have to use the phrase that I tried to argue with the state prosecutor here, that the word brilliant is a child, in certain situations it might be correct.
Yes.
I'm saying so because Mrs. Mushwana, Lucy Mushwana, could call the accused my child.
Indeed,
Yes.
my lord.
So
Indeed, my lord.
she took the stand and say she's lying. Who should I believe? And tell me why. That is how you've got. She has told me why I've got to disbelieve that. And now it's your opportunity to rebut that.
My lord, that is not in dispute that the deceased, Madala Omu, in the insurance policies was registered as a spouse.
But was that correct?
My lord, I'm coming to that, my lord.
Yes.
It was incorrect, my lord.
And then what is the effect of that incorrect insertion vis-a-vis the insurance policy?
My lord, with regard to a spouse, my lord, you don't have to pay any premium.
So that is a loss to the insurance policy, to a company. Is that correct?
It's correct, my lord.
And because he's registered as a spouse,
Yes.
what amount of money he has to get, and which he did get?
Well, because of the unnatural death, my lord, it
Yes.
double the amount. It doubles the amount.
And that is that not defrauding the company?
My lord, from the evidence of the insurance witnesses, is that if the insurer lodge a claim, they investigate the claim, my lord. My lord, the deceased is registered as a spouse.
But you see, yes, it's registered as a spouse.
Yes.
Then you said that the insurance should have investigated.
My lord, the document that was submitted to the insurance, my lord, should be sufficient to prove that indeed the deceased is a spouse to the beneficiary, my lord.
But
Before the insurance can pay.
But was it not so? She submitted the claim saying Madala Homo is her husband, spouse. Was Madala Homo her husband?
My lord, he was not a husband.
And as a result, that is not true statement. Is that correct?
Indeed, my lord.
And it comes from a police woman.
My lord, with regard to that, my lord, the evidence of the accused is that when he registered Madala Omu, he informed the salesperson that this is his cousin. However, the error was with the salesperson of the insurance, my lord. That's why, my lord, I'm going back.
That is her version.
Yes.
But the version of the state, if you read the document, it says what? And it says it's a spouse.
Yes.
And if it's a spouse and you discover an error, how do you correct an error in order to get the things honestly and rightly done?
You inform, my lord,
Sorry?
you inform the sales person that
He
there's
make
an
an
error.
amendment.
Yes.
Did
yes.
he make amendment?
My lord, that was not done.
Why? Because the submission of the state is that because this was intentionally designed to defraud the company, firstly, the premiums, secondly, the double payment.
Let's agree, my lord. I agree with the court with regard to that, my lord. However, my lord, if we go back, my lord,
Yes.
when the claim is lodged after the deceased has passed on, my lord, there are certain documents that must be submitted to prove the claim.
Yes.
However, my lord, those documents were submitted and the claim was processed
And paid.
and paid, indeed, my
Yes.
lord. Yes. However, my lord, with regard to those documents, there is no evidence that maybe there was amendment to say that this is not a spouse, or he submitted a marriage certificate to confirm that.
Wasn't that document written in her own name? The claim form.
Yes, indeed, my lord, it was written in her name.
And in her own handwriting, he says, Madala Home is my husband, is my spouse. Isn't that so?
Indeed, my lord. However, my lord, the question now that we left with, was a marriage certificate submitted to the insurance policies, my
Let's
lord?
forget about that. Let's forget about that. Is that statement true?
My lord,
In the light of all the evidence from Godfrey Mushwana, from Mrs. Mushwana, the aunt to the accused, from Eva Mohomo, from all the witnesses that testified against, for the state. Is that statement correct?
No, my lord, it's not correct. It's incorrect, my lord. We agree with that, my lord. However, my lord, the error that was made, as the version of the accused that was made by the salesperson, my lord, and was not amended by the accused, my lord. I submit that, my lord, the accused, my lord, cannot be seen as a person who had intention to defraud the insurance policies, my lord. My lord, from the evidence of Mr. Haystack, Mr. Ngabeni, and other insurance salesperson, my lord, their evidence is that, my lord, if you are living with someone for more than 3 months,
No, it's not from Haystack.
yes, from Mr. Ngabeni, yes, for more than 3 months, yes, and you share the same responsibilities, that person is registered as a spouse.
Now it's considered.
It's considered, yes, it's considered as a spouse, my lord.
Well, can I engage you on that?
Yes, my lord.
What is your understanding of a spouse?
My lord, my understanding from the word spouse, my lord, is two people who are married, who are legally married, my lord.
Now, who are married,
Yes.
and the marriage may be taking different forms.
Yes,
It may be, traditional marriage.
yes,
It may be the so-called civil marriage.
yes.
Would you say the accused was in a traditional marriage with a cousin? Sometimes it happens. Now I'm asking you, would you consider this to be accused to have been in a marriage relationship, be it customary, be it what they usually refer as to common law marriage or civil marriage? Would you say he was in such a relationship?
No, my lord, you were not in a relationship even.
So that statement,
Yes.
which he writes down,
Yes.
is not true.
That we concede, my lord, that was not true.
And if it's not true,
Yes.
what are the consequences? It means that other people contracted with her on wrong basis. Is that not so?
My lord, that, my lord, I won't take it further, my lord, because I don't know whether it's
I hear
the
you.
insurance is a policy.
You have heard the state, and
Yes.
I've read your
Yes, my
your his.
Yes. And with regard to Mabasa, my lord, Mr. Yingwani, Maurice Mabasa, yes, my lord, the accused and the deceased is not in dispute that they were staying together.
Well,
although
the
they were not.
But the marriage was full of big problems. You still remember, Justice Mabasa?
Yes, indeed, my lord.
He said the accused would even come to his place, coming to complain. You still remember the evidence of Percival Maluleke, who led the house to hell. He said it was damaged.
Indeed, my lord.
Somebody tried to commit, arson. They even found the petrol beneath the bed, which was occupied by your client. And Mr. Justice Mabasa, he even said over the weekends,
Yes.
the deceased to run away.
Indeed,
And
my lord.
what was the source? He said, when they complained when they approached him, when she approached him, she indicated that the deceased son from elsewhere, from other relationship, was the one who was making the deceased to undermine the accused. Do you still remember that evidence?
Yes, I still remember that.
So how does that help you?
My lord, however, if we look at that evidence as a whole, my lord, yes, the relationship, sometimes it has some
Some potholes.
Yes, some potholes indeed, my lord. And the deceased sometimes will disappear and switch off his phone. That was evidence from Justice Mabasa, my lord.
Yes.
Yes. So, my lord,
That's why, you know, just Mr. Soko.
Yes.
That's where the state is inviting me, and I'm inviting to rebut that. Say, please make a deduction
yes.
that this is the accused has a propensity.
Indeed, my lord. However, my lord, with regard to the Mabasa relationship with the accused, my lord, where it has some potholes and some problems, my lord, the accused on the morning, I don't recall the date, when she went to Olifantsfontein, my lord. My lord, I submit, my lord, that she acted reasonably, my lord, to go and report.
But you know,
The disease, my lord.
just there, let me just engage with them. The state argument which you now have to deal with is that that was a cover-up. That was a cover-up in order to fit in her overall pattern that they have explained to say this is similar facts evidence, and from which you have to make a certain inferences. That's what they're saying. And not only that, they also say the accused had a pattern of firstly designing things in such a way she appeases everybody before she hits. Firstly, they say she phoned Mrs. Mushwana, her aunt. She sends the money. The money is picked up from the ShopRite money platform. They buy the cake. And during that time, he says to her aunt, I'm worried about the conduct and the behavior of your son, Homo. And in her own evidence, she didn't even know where Homo was staying because it would have been 30 minutes drive from Clayville to Garfontein. He said, I warn you. You know, it reminds me, you know, the arch. He said, I warn you. Take out a love, you know, join the society. You know, this informal burial society. And that's the society that buried the accused, the deceased. Notwithstanding the fact that the accused received in total 131,000 rands. They say no, he doesn't do that. Now it doesn't stop there. Look at what he did with Somisa. In the morning there, she meets Mrs. Nwebe. She's introduced, and she and Somisa, who was allegedly going to church, they go back to her residence. He said, no, go and buy bread. And her evidence, no, she didn't go and buy bread. You know, she went to take the bread from Thomas Kosa. They then had tea inside that cottage where the deceased was. There were 2 cups. It was seen by Mrs. Nwebe, it was seen by Masangani, it was seen by Warrant Officer Mabale, it was seen by her own friend, Sergeant Pindi Shiluban.
Indeed, my lord.
And they say she took them and they stopped her. She proceeded. Her evidence now. After I discovered the body of my sister, I was standing up, they fell down, I picked them up, I put them there. But she doesn't, deny that she was warned. So they say, if you take all this, now before I come to that, I'm giving you this total picture so that you can assist me to determine whether the state has failed. He then makes some good approaches to Mr. Mota or Sanele Mota's brother in Davidton. Evidence is placed before this court that when I talk to you, please move away. That was never, disputed. But again, what she does, she gives herself as this loving person. And this comes clearly from the evidence in the bail application before she hits. The police officer, Machikiri, he said, I found this body. I took the phone and I found the last number that was called. The lady said, I know the place. And nothing damning comes out of that. The accused says, I was not there. So, you see, now all of them first they make, she gives herself as a caring person. All of them. Even with a brilliant Mashihu. Brilliant Mashihu is a person who comes from Bushbuck Ridge, taking the CV to the airport. And then when Charlotte Maluleke sees her, how did he say, what was her evidence? She was in a bad shape. Yes. She wanted 300 rand. I gave her.
Yes.
And in her own evidence, the next morning, Mashigo goes and sleeps with the cousins in Tembisa. In the morning, they meet at Sangweni. That is on the 22nd. Then they take a taxi from Sangweni to Germiston. And this is, during the day. From when they arrived in Germiston, they found out that the taxis to Mpumalanga have finished. Then they go to Benoni. When they arrive at Benoni, they found the taxis have finished. Then they go to hiking spot. They get into the house, and by the way, she's expecting the boyfriend to be, going to that area. The only reason why she couldn't get a lift with the boyfriend is because this was a company car, which the company never give us. So this is how the state is saying. This is a pattern now.
Yes.
It is for you to argue to the contrary, to rebut that their observation, their presentation does not amount to the proof of, as they alleged on paragraph 94 of their case.
My Lord, with regard to the state argument, my Lord, the accused and the deceased were families, my Lord.
Sorry?
The accused and the deceased were families, my Lord. They were the family of the accused, my Lord. And
your son?
Some, yes.
Yeah, I don't think Maurice Mabasa was the family.
Yes, or excluding Maurice.
Yes.
Yes. And there was a good relationship between the accused and the deceased, my Lord.
And which deceased?
Mayen Mashaba. We heard from Mr. Mudau.
Yes.
Yes, who testified that Mayen Mashaba told him that
yes,
the accused was his aunt, and they had a good relationship with. And
incidentally, everybody calls her an aunt. Have you realized? Zanella Motors as his aunt. When she's taken out of the hospital in Tembisa,
yes,
who was the last person to be with her? It's the aunt.
Yes, indeed.
Who was the last person to take her to the to RV hospital? It's the aunt.
Yes.
At all times that when she was in the hospital, with the aunt, there was no any other body in there. But when you look at the evidence of Dr. Ngu, Dr. Molo, and the evidence of Mrs. Pasha and Mrs. Mameja. They said, if she was so critical as she alleges, they would not have. And the doctor there was Dr. Lomoto. He said he couldn't. Dr. Ngu said in those circumstances he couldn't. Dr. Mpatlela says when the accused brought the witness, the Zanele to the hospital, it was at about 6 minutes past 12 midnight. And 2 seconds thereafter, 2 seconds after applying the machines, they found they declared the accused dead. If you want to use a good language, you say, in fact, it was Black Maria when the car in which she was taken to the RV hospital. Now, the state is, keep on bringing you, the question is, the propensity, the similar facts are such that the probative value is that they've got to be taken into account, and when they analyze, the accused is the person who was in conjunction with the other unknown people responsible for the death. They said, look, he's the first one to find out about Madala, and the death of Madala is consistent with the conditions of the policy. The death of Mr. Mabasa, 79 stab wounds, consistent with the policy of funeral policy. The death of Brilliant Mashiho, consistent. The death of Zanele's brother, consistent. They all died. The death of her own sister. They say, now, please, court, you don't have any alternative. That is submission. Now I'm inviting you to rebut.
Indeed, my lord. With regard to the deceased Brilliant Mashiho and Mayen Mashaba, there was no claim that was lodged on behalf of those two.
Sorry?
No claim was lodged on Brilliant Mashiho.
No, the idea now is not only the claim.
Yes.
We are not only dealing with the claim, we deal with the death,
Yes.
as well.
Indeed, my lord. Yes. There were no claims that were instituted.
But what about death?
On the day in question when Mr. Mayen Mashabal left Davidson, there's evidence before this court that he went to meet with the accused.
Exactly.
Indeed, my lord. Yes. And from the following day, he was found dead. However, my lord, with regard to the evidence of Mr. Machikiri, who testified that when he found the deceased and searched him, and he found a cell phone, and when he switched that cell phone on, he dialed the last number that was called in that cell phone. Bafana Shlomuka and Mr. Mudau, but let me start with Bafana Shlomuka, who testified that her mother received a call from a police officer who informed her that Mayen Mashaba has passed on. And her mother phoned the accused. The reason why he phoned the accused is because he wanted to know what happened to the deceased, because the previous day she left with the deceased, and now he received information that the deceased has passed on. And the accused indeed arrived at Davidson around about 11 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. on that day to meet with Bafana's mother. Now, the evidence of Constable Machikiri, I don't know what I call it right, is that after he phoned the lady said, I know the place. And within 30 minutes, the lady was at the scene. And he said, is the accused who arrived there, my lord. Then, my lord, from the evidence of of Constable Machikiri and Bafana, my lord, then there's a question. Bafana's mother received a call from police officer Mr. Shabang, who informed her about the passed away of the deceased. Mr. Machikiri phoned, in his evidence, he phoned the accused, and the accused within 30 minutes he was there, my lord. However, my lord, if you look at the place from Delmas Road to Davidton, my lord, and the accused, even Bafana, went further and said that the accused, who was driving in a venture, he was carrying a child on that day. However, from Mr. Machikiri, the accused, who was just there alone.
No, it's that, I don't think you're correct. This on the day that the deceased Willie died.
Yes.
They were in a venture. But he didn't say in the morning when she went there, they were in a venture.
Oh, yes, my lord. They said they were sitting together and next to Club 199 or something at Davidton on the day before the deceased meet with the accused. But the next day, when this message was conveyed that the deceased has passed on, the message was conveyed to Bafana's mother through a cell phone of the deceased from a police officer, Mr. Shabang, my lord. That's the evidence of Mr. Bafana Hlumuka. And that's when the accused was phoned to come to Davidton, and he went there, and she went there. However, Constable Machikiri, in his evidence, is that after he phoned the number, the lady who answered the phone said that I know the place, and she arrived there. My lord, when you look at that evidence, my lord, it's clear that, my lord, the accused in his version said that I never went to the scene where the deceased Mr. Willie Mashaba was found. I went to Davidton. And my lord, if we can further go to the evidence of I forget the name of the surname is
Mabuza. Mabuza, the lady.
The lady, yes, my lord.
Who said, he went to the accused. He said the accused phoned her.
Yes, indeed, my lord. He phoned her to come to meet with her at somewhere in Pretoria.
He eventually gave instruction that she must never ever do anything about that because she said, I don't even know her.
Indeed, my lord.
Yes.
Indeed.
She said she was given the information that she went away with the aunt, and they phoned her on the number that they gave, and he requested her to come back, and she refused.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and this, I don't know, it's the next day when she was phoned by the accused to say to her she must come to Pretoria so that they can meet, so that they can go and look for the body of Mr. Willie Mashaba. My lord, if the accused knew where, if she went to the scene where Mr. Mashaba was found, as testified by Constable Machikiri, my lord, why will the accused phone Miss Mabuza and inform her to come to Pretoria so that they can look for the body of the deceased, my lord?
So you say it's improbable?
Yes, my lord.
I will hear the state on that.
Yes.
So you say if improbable for her to
is to call Miss Mabuza.
Miss Mabuza.
Yes.
to, why is it improbable?
My lord, if the accused went to the scene, as Constable Machikiri testified that she went to the scene and identified the deceased, and then why will she call Mrs. Mabuza to say, let's come to Pretoria, let's look for the body of
It's
Mr. Williams?
improbable if she
Yes.
knew where the body was,
Yes. indeed,
knew
my lord.
or visited the scene.
Yes, yes.
What you say, Ms. Mabuza said she phoned me to say what?
She must come to Pretoria so that they can go and look for the body of the deceased at a mortuary.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you closer to your argument? I'm not rushing you. I'm just asking.
Indeed, my lord. Yes. And then, my lord, if we further goes on with the evidence, with the incident of Audrey Somisa.
Yes.
Yes. It's not in dispute that Sergeant Pindile Shulubane and Mrs. Warrant Officer Mabale, as they testified that they saw the accused taking those 2 cups and putting them outside. And further, my lord, the evidence of the accused is that when they drank the tea with Audrey Somisa, the deceased, they were sitting outside. And he even said that it was at winter at that time, it was in June. That's why they were sitting outside drinking the tea. She never went inside the room, my lord. And further, my lord, the evidence of Mr. Mrs. Mwepe and Mrs. Masangani, in their evidence is that when they entered Mr. Badimu's residence, they went inside after the security door was grinded off.
No. They said, look, Mrs. Nwebe, let's start first with Mrs. Nwebe.
Yes.
She saw the accused coming to her.
Yes.
And the accused say, please come with me to Audrey's place.
Yes.
She refused initially. She said, then the accused became hysterical and started crying. She relented, she went. On the way, she fell. At the gate, she started to making a noise, and this noise attracted the people in the vicinity.
Indeed.
And that's when Mrs. Masangani came in.
Yes.
And they went in, and she remained. And before they went in,
Yes.
she had a phone, handset, and she dialed. They don't know who she dialed,
Yes.
but they said, Ulovi, it's gone, it's dead.
Yes.
Mrs. Mwabe said, no, I want her. And he said, I was surprised because that stage, we were still outside.
Yes.
And when they got inside, she remained there. That's when Sergeant Shilubane and Mabale found her. They found her crying.
Yes.
And they said when they got to the house, this cottage of Somisi, it was the security door, the butler door was locked.
Yes. Indeed.
The door, the wooden door was not. They took a pole and they pushed it, and they then reached the body of somebody under the legs.
Yes.
And that's when they even tried to break the door, and they even phoned Badimu. Badimu said, is it Badimu? Badimu said, no, don't. You better unroof the house. But eventually when Shilubane and Mabale came, they managed to persuade, and they then sent the Thomas, the boyfriend, to go and borrow
Yes.
the grinder. And when they borrowed the grinder, they opened it.
Indeed, my lord.
So
Indeed, my lord.
that is the context in which they have. But
Yes.
they have said that at that stage, There were a lot of people.
Yes, at that stage, indeed, my lord.
And then they got inside, she got there, and all of them, they said they saw the cops.
Yes, yes, that.
And the accused version is that I was cleaning up.
Yes, my lord.
So, please...
on that, my lord, is that when the accused, when the burglar door was grinded open, the evidence of Warrant Officer Mabal is that he's the one who first entered, and another gentleman, which is Mr. Thomas Khoza, and it was Sergeant Spindile Shulubane, and it was the accused who were inside that room, my lord. And there's nowhere in his evidence where he said that the other people who were present there, they also entered the room, my lord.
But but
Yes.
let's for purpose of argument, let me grant you that. But then the story of the two cops converge from Sergeant Shulubane, who is the home girl from Mpumalanga, with the accused.
Indeed, my lord.
He says, I saw the cops.
Yes.
And if Mrs. Mabale and Mrs. Masangani were not, why does the statement, the evidence so much support one another?
My lord.
They corroborate one another.
Yes, yes. That there were two cops inside the house.
And they, not only that they wanted not to take that.
That was Sergeant Shulubane, if I'm not sure.
Shulubane.
Yes. And Mrs.
Mabale.
Yes.
Mrs. Masangani. Mrs. Wepe. Remember, Mrs. Wepe is the one who was called to accompany her to the residence.
Yes.
So does it not follow logically that if she was the one who was called to accompany, it follows that she was inside?
My lord, with regard to that, my lord, we also have evidence from Sergeant Maluleke, who also arrived at the scene. Who was from
Sergeant Maluleke and warrant officer Manyani.
Indeed.
They too say they took the statement.
Yes.
At the time when they took the statement, the accused was calm.
Yes, indeed,
Yes.
my lord. Yes.
Insana Maluleke said he was calm.
Yes. Yes.
And so is that's why the reason why they even said, the reason why they said they took the statement, they said they took the statement not as a suspect, but as a next of kin.
Yes, because she asked whether there was a family member around
Yes.
the scene. Yes.
So tied up to the rebuttal situation.
Yes. And my lord, if we take the evidence of
I want to something to drink. The water go.
if Sergeant Maluleke, my lord, with Sergeant Shulubane and Mr. Mabale, my lord, from their evidence, the only people who entered that cottage is only the accused and the police officers and Mr. Khoza, Thomas Khoza, my lord.
No, but Mrs. Maluleke, Mrs. Maluleke, you must understand that Mrs. Mwepe and Mrs. Masangani were the very active member of that thing, because they were called.
Yes.
And they were introduced to the accused.
Indeed, my lord.
Yes.
Yes.
And if they were not in, how would they have seen this evidence of two cups, which in fact, incidentally, they are also confirmed by the accused?
Yes.
Safe to say, there's not the cups that were used.
Yes. Yes. Indeed, my lord.
And then, but that's that evidence. The state alleges that the situation should have been cordoned off,
Yes.
and that should not have been tampered with.
Yes,
and
indeed.
the conduct of the accused is defeating the ends of justice. What do you say to that?
My lord, with regard to that, my lord, the accused's version is that the cups that they used to drink the tea were outside and they were seated outside. These cups that were inside, it's when she leaned next to the cabin when these cups fell, and then he picked them up, my lord.
But that version is contradicted strongly by all the four of the witnesses that you've mentioned.
Yes.
Mrs. Mavale, Mrs. Masangani, Mrs. Warrant Officer, Mr. Mavale, and Shiluban.
Yes.
They said no, that's not true. She took those 2 cups and put them in the bucket full of water, and she confirmed that. Except that those were not the cups
Yes.
that they were used.
Yes. Yes.
So they said that she tampered with the scene and defeated the ends of justice.
My lord, with regard to that, my lord, yes, there is evidence that when they left Mrs. Ngwepe and Ms. Masangane, is that they were going to drink tea with the deceased. However,
No, not when they left him, Mrs. Masangana and Mrs. Wepe. It's when, after she was, the day before, on the 25th, I think,
Yes.
when she was introduced.
to them,
Yes.
yes, and then
But to make it even worse, this case has got a number of different angles. You will recall that on the first day of encounter with Mrs. Ngwepe, after later Mrs. Ngwepe said, I saw her going away
Yes.
and coming back. And when you say, you said even say, she will come and say, she brought the grocery. You still remember that version?
yes, my lord.
And then she left the grocery with somebody in the main house.
Yes, with the other tenants, yes.
Yes, but that was not ever corroborated, not even in her evidence. Did she? Unless I missed it.
No, in her evidence, she never corroborated that she brought
And she
the
never
grocery.
even called the people who were staying in the main house to come and corroborate that. That's why the state is saying, if I understood it correctly,
Yes.
that she was busy building the alibi and defenses as we go on, brick by brick. Is that how I understood you, Mrs.?
Yes, my lord.
This is, what you've got to. But anyway, I hear you.
Yes.
So, in a nutshell, what do you say? So, all the, allegations against her.
My lord, then with the other witnesses, my lord, with regard to Mr. Gunene, Mr. Mkize, Mr. Mjali, Mr. Stole, if I'm not mistaken, Constable Dlamini, Warrant Officer Dlamini, the driver, when they were driving to Pushback Ridge. My lord, on the 7th, before the 7th, during 2017, when he first met with Mr. Gunene at Cebisile's house, my lord, Jabulo Gunene said he was present. He said he was called by her sister Cebisile Gunene over an unknown number, and when he answered it, it was her sister, and she requested him to come to his home. However, my lord, that evidence, my lord, after they met with the accused, if you look at the evidence of Njabulo, he was arrested in around 2012, 2013, and he was...
No, 2011.
2011, yes, he was discharged. From 2011 to...
No, he was not. They said he was arrested for illegal possession of firearm.
Yes.
And the charges were withdrawn.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't know much. That's when
Yes.
it is said the said Mr. Kunene manifested to the accused this krachtatigheid. Obamata. It's been siyabulala, it's been siyaphilisa. That's when he said that's how she was picked up.
Yes, my lord. My lord. However, my lord, if we look at the evidence of Mr. Kunene, the arrest in 2011, the withdrawal of the charges, from there is no contact between Mr. Kunene and the accused until the December 2017, my lord.
Yes.
When they first met at Cebisile's house. That was the second time when they met again.
Yes.
Yes. And from the evidence of Mr. Kunene, my lord, there's nothing that they discussed with the accused during his arrest. It's only that he was charged and the charges were withdrawn.
Yes. No, that matter was not pursued. But what is the relevance of that, Mr. Soko?
Is that, my lord, on the first day after plus minus 4 years, there was no contact between them.
Yes.
2017, during December, the accused is second time meeting Mr. Ndlovu. She'll just say, I want you to kill my sister. My lord,
the point you're making is?
I'm saying that, my lord,
It's improbable.
Is improbable, my lord.
But, feeling of... Let me, while we are on this improbabilities and probabilities, you recall that on the 7th of March 2018, when they picked accused from Kastenhof Hospital,
yes,
the evidence is that they were, the car was parked some distance away, and she met with Njabolo.
Indeed,
and Njabolo coached her as to what he has to say. And what he said is, was said that during the trip from Kirstenhof until they arrived at in Bushbuck Ridge.
Yes.
And you see that the distance from the main entrance of the hospital until where this was parked is not that long.
Yes.
Is it probable that he could have narrated them in such details that he could have narrated them the way she did? Is that probable?
My lord, the distance, if we look at the distance, yes, it's a short distance from the gate of the hospital to where the car was parked.
Is that probable?
My lord,
to sort of coach her what to say exactly as she does on the clip about the trip. Is that probable?
my lord,
once you think on that, well, and I hope you'll revert back to me. It's common cause that she was arrested in Bushbuck Ridge. But that is after they have visited and the house was pointed out where, the sister was staying. This is the explanation why she didn't go there, is that she didn't plan. Even if she didn't plan, surely if this opportunity arrived, is it possible that she couldn't have taken the opportunity just to go and say to the sister, "Hi, how are you? Unfortunately, I didn't come here." Is that probable? Because had he not been arrested by Warrant Officer Zulu out of the Kumbi,
yes,
she would not have gone. She would have not gone to see the sister. Isn't that so?
it's so, my lord, because he was taking the taxi back to Nelspruit.
Is that possible? Unless there is, that is why they stated this. This is a pattern trying to build alibi, because you must remember the agreement was that she must be back to Kirstenhof before a certain period.
It was before 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, then the state says, before that time, then she was busy building up the alibi. as they say, this is the pattern of how this case, the court has to look at the similar facts. Anything else, Mr.? Are you able to assist me in that regard?
My lord, with that evidence, my lord.
No, I mean, you know,
Yes,
whatever evidence you can to rebut what they say I've got to infer from.
My lord, from the version of the accused, if we look at the evidence as a whole, my lord, the evidence of Mr. Dlamini and Mr. Kunene is that the accused pointed the house of her sister. But the version of the accused is that he never pointed the house of her sister. Before they reach the place where her sister stays, it's when she told them that no, she want to go back.
No, but what I'm asking you,
Yes.
Mr. Soko, it's common cause that she came, you know, she originates from Mapulaneng
Yes,
or Bushbuck Ridge.
yes,
It's in Limpopo, it's not in Mpumalanga. And this is an opportunity to have gone at least, even if she wanted to say hi to the sister.
yes. And the mother
State
also
says,
staying
you know,
around.
The state says no, she didn't want to do that because she was building an alibi because the sister was supposed to be eliminated the evening. They said that's the only inference that I've got
Yes, madam.
to draw. Now I'm inviting you to demonstrate anything to the contrary. To rebut that, to say that inference to be drawn is wrong.
My lord, I concede that it was an opportunity for the accused on that day to maybe to buy pass out at her sister's place. However, she said no, she wanted to go back, and she was taken back to the taxi, and that's where she was arrested.
Well, I'm known to her. The sting operation at that time was in, you know, what I don't like is that I'm not a participant here. I'm just only adjudicating, and I've seen, I don't want my face to appear as regularly as this on the media. It's I'm becoming part of Mvango. you know, one picture one can, but you know, when I become to be flash all over, I don't want to be seen I'm restricting the media, but you know, I'm not I'm only adjudicating. But what I'm saying is, I'm debating this with you because the state said, on the basis of this evidence, it only show the pattern, and that pattern is similar facts pattern. And this is not the one which has to be rejected as an exceptional in terms of the certain case law. Now I'm inviting you to assist me to cross that bridge.
My lord, from the evidence of the witnesses and the accused evidence that when they arrived at Bushbuck Ridge on that day, it was in the afternoon. And on their arrival, when they left,
They arrived in Bushbuck Ridge about 11 o'clock.
about 11 years.
When one takes into account they left Kastenhof
Yes.
at about 6 o'clock.
Yes. It's around 11.
Yes.
And at that stage, my lord, the accused was supposed to be back at the hospital at Kastenhof in the afternoon. And at that stage, that's where the accused said, no, take me back to the taxi rank. Because,
I hear you.
yes,
I hear you.
yes, so that he can arrive, because he was now going to use a taxi, my lord, which is a public transport, and no longer the transport that...
No, but it seemed to be used to the taxis. You remember when she went there with brilliant Mashio? They went first to Jamestown, from Jamestown, David, go Binoni.
Yes, yes.
So let's not, give that statement some steroids to make it bigger than what it is. So, in a nutshell, if you were to summarize, what would you say? The state has failed.
My lord, I will summarize. I will say that the state has failed, my lord, to prove its case.
Are you able to tell me in what respect?
My lord, if you look at the evidence that has been led by the state, my lord, especially with regard to the murder charges, my lord.
Sorry?
With regard to the major charges, my lord.
Yes.
Yes. The state relies on a circumstantial evidence, my lord.
Yes.
Yes, my lord. I submit, my lord, that the facts that the state has not proved enough facts, my lord, to find the accused guilty of this.
Mr. Soto, you said they haven't sufficient.
Yes, my lord. Sufficient evidence, my lord. And
to advance their circumstantial evidence approach.
Yes, against the accused, my lord.
Yes.
Yes. And, my lord, with regard to the conspiracy, my lord, and the incitement, my lord, before I submit, my lord, there is evidence of Miss Mushwana, Maria Mushwana, the mother of the accused, my lord, who testified that during that time she was staying with her 2 grandchildren only, and Joyce was staying at her place of residence. And on that day, at that time, there was no person that arrived at her home, maybe who asked for water.
Yes, that's where I'm asking.
Yes.
Is that possible? Nobody.
My lord,
That in December 2017, I was at home and nobody came there for water. He didn't say stranger.
yes, it
He
didn't say
said nobody.
Yes, yes, yes.
Is that possible?
My lord, with regard to the evidence that from Mr. Mukize that he asked for drinking water, my lord, if you look at the evidence of Ms. Mshwana, nobody came and asked for water. And at that stage, in her evidence that she was living with 2 grandchildren, my lord, only, and they were still young, they were grandchildren. And Mr. Mkize's evidence that there was a lady, and the old lady, Mrs. Mshwana, and a young child.
Just there.
Yes.
Was there any policy that covered Mrs. Mushwana?
Well, yes, there are police that they covered.
That's exactly the reason why the state is submitting that one. Because of those policies, Mrs. Mushwana was earmarked to be killed, so that they can so that she can catch on that. And they then again link it up with all other modus operandi. You see, they say, look, how she operates, smart operator. She hits and there's nobody to say. But they say there, everywhere you are, there's a footprint. It comes this way. The footprint, she went there, she was last one to be seen with the brilliant Mashiro.
Yes.
And she was always in contact with brilliant Mashiro through the telephone communication. She was in communication with Lakuyo Mkise through the cell phones. Yes. She was always there. That is how they say, that's why I'm saying, they say she was a smart operator. Now you say, I've got to disbelieve that. And I'm inviting you, please give me the reasons.
My lord,
from, the reason that you've got to do must come from the facts as given in this.
Yes, indeed, my lord. my lord, the version of the accused from here in all these charges is that on the day when she went to Bushbuck Ridge with Mr. Mkize, Mr. Mjali and Mr. Kunene and Mr. Dlamini on that day, my lord, he was accompanying Mr. Kunene to a traditional healer, my lord.
But no, you're taking it, in the middle.
Yes.
She said sometime before that,
Yes.
Kerisile and then Njabulo,
Yes.
they wanted to see a traditional healer.
Yes.
And she offered to go there.
Yes.
But on the 7th, there comes some people who he doesn't even know. She gets into the car. By that time, she was already a sergeant.
Yes.
And she doesn't raise that thing up. She says, no, I did not make agreement with you. And by that time, as they move out of the Kastenhof towards the parking lot on where the public parking space,
Yes.
she said, Njabulo said to him, hey, this is what you've got to do. And that which he said, Njabulo said to him to do, in terms of those clips,
Yes.
at most it's about an hour. When you tested them, cumulatively the period they've taken is about an hour. So he said, this is what I was told to say. Now I've given you the background, and then you've got to take it out from there. Just to feel you. Doesn't come from what to say. She said, she was requested by Kebisile and Jabule. By the way, that version was never ever put to them.
It was put to Mr. Kunene, my lord.
But Kebisile was not put to him. And Kebisile, why I'm saying this, you know how Kebisile and the accused met? They were playing, the machine, slot machine at the Emperor's Place. And Kebisile happened too. Pull the handle there, and the machine, started to emit some 2,500. The accused then asked her, what is what is your name? And then that's where the relationship was started. And she even asked her for petrol money. And that was never denied.
Yes.
But I'm putting this to assist, to give you the factual background. Now I'm asking you, please, assist me.
My lord, is not in dispute that the accused and Ms. Kebisile Kunene, they were friends, my lord. And they know each other. However, my lord, this discussion of going to Bushbuck Ridge with Mr. Kunene, it was discussed before the 7th of March 2018 between Mr. Kunene, the accused, and Ms. Kebisile, my lord, that they will be taken to a traditional healer in Bushbuck Ridge. That's why on the 7th, when Mr. Kunene and Mr. Dlamini and Mr. Mjali pick up the accused at Kastenhof Hospital, the accused was under the impression that Kebisile was present and they were going to Bushbuck Ridge, my lord, as arranged before.
And anyway, are you likely to finish
Yes,
anytime soon?
Yes, my lord.
I'm not pushing you.
My lord, I'm only now dealing with this conspiracy of Mr. Kunene, Mr. Mujali, and Mr. Mkize, my lord. My lord, there's evidence also, my lord, from these witnesses that when they met with the accused at Galfontein or Ziniko, I don't recall, that's where Mr. Kunene asked the accused about her sister who was staying at Pumulung. And in his response, Mr. Kunene said that he has killed, the accused said, has killed her. And my lord, from the evidence that we heard before this court, is that the sister who was staying at Pumulong is Gladys Nomia Ndlovu. And my lord, there's also that Nomia Ndlovu is still alive, my lord. My lord, if indeed Nomia Ndlovu was killed, my lord, I submit that, my lord, the accused would not have told Mr. Kunene that, no, I've taken care of her, or I've killed her, my lord. My lord, I submit, my lord, that the evidence of Mr. Kunene and Mr. Mkhize, my lord, there are contradictions in that evidence, my lord. And my lord, those contradictions, my lord, I submit, my lord, they are material, my lord. And I submit that, my lord, the accused version, my lord, should be accepted, my lord, as possibly reasonably true, my lord, and that the evidence of Mr. Kunene and Mkhize, like you and Mkhize, should be rejected, my lord. And I submit that, my lord, the court should find the accused not guilty on all the charges, my lord, that he has been charged with, my lord. That's my submission, my lord, unless court.
Thank you.
My lord, in respect of the question that the court said that I should address the Honourable Court in respect of Ms. Mabusa's evidence that it was improbable because that the accused contacted Ms. Mabusa to identify the body of the deceased in count 12, Willie Mota. My lord, however, what the accused and the defence forgot is Sergeant Machikiri did not ask the accused to identify the body for purposes of identifying a body and submitting the documentation at the mortuary. It was just an onset of realizing who is this individual that we found here on the street, lying there dead. It was a starting point of the investigation. What the accused needed, she needed the body to be identified at the mortuary and the relevant documentation to be completed properly at the mortuary in order for her to submit it. So it's not improbable that the accused went to the scene to identify, as well as that she went to Ms. Mabusa and asked her, or that she phoned her and asked her to go with me to go and find the body. The purpose for that, my lord, was to obtain the death certificate. Because as soon as the death certificate can be obtained, then the money can be paid. And that is the purpose why she requested Ms. Mabusa to go with her to look for the body. And the court correctly found and questioned my learned friend, why was Sergeant Machikiri's evidence so controversial for the accused to reject? We know the accused had a conversation with the deceased the previous night. It was not in dispute. So why was his evidence so controversial for her to come and say, no, it wasn't me. I've never seen that police officer ever in my life. The reason, my lord, is she knew exactly where that body was to be found. She knew exactly where that body was discovered, and for that reason she was within 30 minutes on the scene. And only a person involved in that offence would have been there so quickly and exactly at the same spot. That is why she is fighting the evidence of Sergeant Machikiri. My Lord, I humbly respectfully submit that my learned friend is only stating that the court should reject the evidence of all the state witnesses. I humbly respectfully submit the evidence of the state witnesses was quite strong. The witnesses came here, some of them were police officers, some of them were neighbors, and it's a far-fetched theory from the defense side to think that the state would go to such lengths to incriminate the accused if the facts wasn't already placed there. Not all the witnesses will come under oath in a court and point the accused person. And it's respectfully submitted, my Lord, that mere request, come alone, to Mr. Mota, on its own, yes, it might once again seem insignificant. But seen in the light of the evidence of Brilliant Mashegu's grandmother, who said, Brilliant wasn't allowed to, I wasn't allowed to know that Brilliant Mashegu and the accused was communicating. Again, a similar fact. It also goes further, my Lord, and I can go on, but the similar fact is repeated in each and every count. And for that reason, my Lord, and common sense dictates that the court cannot just turn a blind eye to that mountain of evidence. On its own, it might be a lightest feather, but a ton of feathers is still a ton of feathers, and it may provide sufficient weight for this honourable court to convict the accused as charged. Does the court need anything further from me?
No, thank you.
As please, Honourable Court.
Well, I realize it's 20 past 12. May the counsel come and see me in chambers.
As please,
The
Honourable
court adjourns.
The court adjourning in the Nomia Ndlovu murder trial there, the state and her counsel bringing in their last arguments to try and make their points. They're going to go to chambers now, and we'll bring you an update of that story a little bit later on.